empty snow, and a lonely old man walking home. Then, he heard a weak cry, hidden under ice, a dying lion cub,
Get back!
barely breathing.
No,
He had
stay
two
away!
choices, walk
I
away,
said
or
back!
risk everything.
You're a good
He
friend,
chose the
aren't you?
impossible.
Yes.
And what
just
happened
rest
days
now.
later, no one was ready for. Cold wind, empty snow, and a lonely old man walking through the silence of a frozen morning. Arthur was 78, his beard white, his steps slow, but his eyes
there,
still
little one.
carried the
Easy
fire
now.
of someone who refused
That's
to
it,
disappear.
good boy.
People in town said he lived too far from everyone, too close to danger, too close to memories. But Arthur never argued. The mountains were the only place that still felt honest. Every morning, before sunrise, he walked the same path along the forest edge. No phone, no noise. Only the sound of his boots pressing into fresh snow. That morning felt different. The air was heavier, the sky darker, like the world was holding its breath. Then he heard it, a weak sound, almost lost in the wind. Not a bird, not a dog, something deeper, something struggling. Arthur stopped, listened again. There it was, a small cry, broken, desperate, fading. He followed the sound toward a fallen tree covered in ice, and there, beneath the frozen branches, lay a tiny lion cub, barely moving, its fur stiff, its body shaking against the cold ground. Arthur froze. A lion, out here, alone, no mother, no tracks, no signs of life around it, only silence, and a creature moments away from death. He knew the risks. Wild animals don't belong in human hands. One wrong move, and everything could go wrong. But walking away felt impossible. He looked into the cub's eyes, half closed, weak, still fighting. Arthur slowly removed his coat, wrapped the cub gently, and lifted it into his arms. The cub barely reacted, too cold, too tired, too close to giving up. The walk home felt longer than ever, each step heavier, the wind cutting into his face, his hands numb, but he kept moving, because for the first time in years, someone needed him. Inside the cabin, Arthur lit a fire, placed blankets near the warmth, and carefully laid the cub down. He warmed milk, cleaned small cuts, and whispered softly, like he was talking to an old friend. Hours passed. Then, a small movement. The cub opened its eyes, slowly, weakly, but alive. Days turned into quiet routines, morning feeding, gentle care, long hours beside the fireplace. The cub grew stronger, curious, playful, following Arthur from room to room like a tiny shadow. Arthur laughed more than he had in years. He spoke to the cub while cooking, while fixing tools, while watching snow fall outside the window. The silence in his home slowly disappeared, but outside, things were changing. Strange tracks began appearing around the cabin at night. Large, deep, powerful footprints circling the trees. Arthur noticed them, but said nothing. He understood the wild, and the wild understood patience. Neighbors started asking questions. "Arthur, we heard you found something. Be careful. Animals like that bring danger." Even local officers visited, warning him about keeping wildlife. Arthur listened quietly, nodded politely. But inside, he knew this bond was temporary. The cub didn't belong to him. It belonged to the wild. One night, the forest fell completely silent. No wind, no birds, no movement. Then, a deep roar echoed across the mountains. Arthur stepped outside slowly, the cold biting into his skin. In the distance, a massive lion stood at the edge of the trees, eyes glowing in the pale moonlight. His heart pounded, but he didn't move. The lion didn't attack, didn't run, just watched. The cub walked beside Arthur, calm, almost excited. The big lion approached, step by step, powerful, silent, unstoppable. Time felt frozen, human, cub, and wild guardian, standing together under the night sky. The large lion sniffed the cub gently, then lifted its head, looking directly at Arthur. There was no anger, no threat, only quiet understanding. For a brief moment, fear disappeared. Arthur felt something rare, something almost sacred, trust between worlds that were never meant to meet. The lion turned slowly and began walking back toward the forest. The cub hesitated, looked back at Arthur, then followed. No drama, no violence, only footprints fading into fresh snow. Arthur stood alone again, but this time he wasn't empty. He returned inside, sat near the fire, and smiled softly. Days passed, and the forest returned to normal. No more tracks, no more roars, only quiet memories carried by the wind. People in town asked him what really happened. Arthur never told the full story. He simply said, "Sometimes kindness travels farther than fear." Every morning he still walked the same path. But now, when he looked at the mountains, he felt something different. Not loneliness, not regret, only the quiet truth that even the smallest act of compassion can leave a mark on the wild and on the human heart. And somewhere, beyond the trees, beyond the snow, a lion walked freely, alive, strong, and carrying a story that no one else would ever fully understand. Because sometimes miracles don't shout, they appear quietly, in frozen mornings, in silent choices, and in the hands of someone brave enough to care.